Consumers don't care how you make the material that you provide to them. They care primarily about, does this work? Does this help me get the job done that I need to get done today?
Hey, Ron, what's going on?
Oh, Karl, I've been so busy. It's been insane here over at Messaging Lab, over at Grow Everything. We've been talking to a lot of different people in the biotech world, not only just innovators, and obviously we have our CPG series going on, but also investors. I want to give a shout out to Lichen Ventures, headed by Justin Brody Comet. And I had met Justin at an event during Climate Week, and he's been a listener of the podcast. So hello, Justin. And recently he had asked me to write an article for the Lichen Ventures blog about industrial biomanufacturing, which I did because we talk about it all the time. And I'm like, fine, you know what? Let me whip something up for their ecosystem. So I did.
It was a good blog post. We'll put a link in the notes for it because you should read it. You talk about needing to have a Manhattan project or Manhattan project-like effort for biomanufacturing and this need for industry and companies to rally. And I think it fits right in with some of the other work we're doing that we're going to be revealing over the course of the year around different companies coming together and creating coalitions for specific molecules or ingredients, things that normally would be very difficult for one company to scale. But when you get these coalitions together, they really have exponential power. So I thought it was a good blog post. Congratulations, Erum. I think it just speaks again to something we always talk about here on the Grow Everything podcast, which is products are being rewritten from the molecular level, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this whole perspective of needing that Manhattan Project type of moment, like you're saying, the coordinated effort across government, industry, academia, and manufacturing, and having a focus, a coordinated focus. And I think it speaks to a lot of what's happening in the world today, even though there's been some effort from the government to spearhead biomanufacturing. I mean, it's not as focused as it was a few years ago. At least we're not hearing much. But on one hand, biomanufacturing enables a decentralized, localized, regionalized supply chain, which is in line with a bit of what's going on here in the United States, where we want to bring some manufacturing to the US, which is biomanufacturing affords that. But at the same time, there's this need and importance still on having petrochemistry and oil be a primary source of making products and obviously fuel our transport and everything. So that's the flip side of biomanufacturing. It's like, well, you don't need to have so much dependence on that. If we rally on creating biomanufacturing infrastructure, we can make things in a different way, even cheaper, if not on par with the cost of making things through petrochemistry. So it's a very interesting dynamic, I would say, but I think there needs to be more conversation, more rallying. And government is one thing, but having industry, academia, manufacturing all come together and say, hey, government, let's look at this other option. Let's try to put more effort into biomanufacturing versus petrochemistry.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting dynamic, also in an interesting time. As we were going to record this, I got an email from the guys at RethinkX who've written about precision fermentation and the changing energy landscape a fair amount. And apparently the founders have a new book called Stellar, A World Beyond Limits and How to Get There. And what they discuss is how any place could be turned into a boomtown when you deploy solar panels, wind turbines, batteries, autonomous electrical transportation, AI-based robot labor, which we barely have seen yet, and then precision fermentation, which is really what we talk about here on this podcast. So I think that that's super interesting because a lot of those things are generally readily available. And it's a matter of like, how do you deploy them all in one place to create a booming city or ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, you shared the link and I haven't looked into the book Stellar too deeply, but yes, I do get that idea of being able to create these boom towns or a completely sustainable way of living. And we had talked about that one town, what was it, in like Oregon or Washington, where it was all women that live there
Right.
and they're completely self-sustaining. They have their own water grid, their own electricity grid. They grow everything. There's no men there. But when I was thinking about it, I also had recently watched this video. It is of Elon Musk, and he was proposed a question of like, you're this billionaire, almost a trillionaire. Oh my God. But why are you still like, participating in government and doing all these things? Like, why are you so involved in everything? And one of the things he was talking about, which I had heard from other leaders, but just came up because this video of what's the purpose of life? Like, what are we doing? And one of the things that has motivated him and other people, and I wonder if this is in the book Stellar, is that we could become this interplanetary species, this interstellar species. And we're just at the beginning of this. And there's so much work to be done in order to start realizing this. And it's not an impossible thing. It's just a time-based thing. But if we focus our efforts collectively as a species, that this could be something that first, let's obviously fix the things on Earth. That goes without saying. But if we do that on Earth, then we're able to then have focused, coordinated efforts to create these boom towns on the moon, on Mars, and other places, other moons of planets, for example, then you might be closer to finding out these big questions of why are we here. That religion does a great job of putting some ideas out there. But I think for other people, especially, people that are like scientists or curious, they just want to learn more and see things, right? Which is fair. I'm curious of what's out there. And if you build more across our solar system, what do we learn? And I think we learn so much at a rapid pace now that's going to be very exciting to see what unravels throughout the next few years.
Yeah. So it's so funny because what I want to say is I watched this ridiculous Adam Driver movie called 65. Do you know about this movie?
No, I love that guy.
Yeah, he lives in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so this movie, it's called 65 because it takes place 65 million years from today. And the idea is like this very advanced explorer crashes his spaceship on planet Earth and has a passenger that he has to save and has to get off the planet. And it's taking place at the point where there are dinosaurs walking on the planet. So they're constantly being challenged by these dinosaurs. But little by little, the sky is being lit up because the asteroids are falling, the asteroids that really took out the dinosaurs. So part of the reason that Musk and others talk about moving off planet is because this kind of event could happen again in the future. But that's not what we're talking about today.
Yes.
Today, we're talking about...
We went really deep there.
Yeah,
Let's get back. Let's get back.
Today, we're talking about consumer packaged goods companies. And Erum, you had a couple of pieces of news that I think are relevant to the people we're talking to today. Do you want to go through those?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is news we heard straight from the people that work there. Karl and I have been talking to so many people across the world of consumer packaged goods. And we have friends across Mars and Kellanova, Kimberly-Clark, Kenvue. And there's been a lot of activity towards the end of last year that slipped to the news cycle because, the news cycle is a bit occupied at the moment with different things going on. But in terms of business, and some people might have already heard this, is that Mars completed its $36 billion acquisition of Kellanova. It used to be Kellogg. I didn't know that. And I know Kellogg being the big international snacks cereal brand. It's North American frozen foods, for example. And so now Mars is going to have an explosive snack division, which is going to be very exciting for that company. And then on the flip side, we're talking about snacks. There's also the world of skincare and beauty and personal care and paper products. So Kimberly-Clark is buying Kenvue. And Kenvue is J&J's rebranded consumer division. There was a lot of controversy on that rebrand, but Kenvue, or the former J&J consumer division, has brands like Tylenol. It's been big in the news, Band-Aid, Listerine. So Kimberly-Clark purchased Kenvue for close to $50 billion. So that is interesting because this acquisition is a signal of creating a major global health and wellness company. And we also have brands like Huggies or diapers. There's a lot of innovation happening there. Kleenex, of course, paper products, and all these pharmacy brands. And so some of the commentary that we've heard about this acquisition is that it's gearing up to be a rival to P&G. And I was like, oh, snap, because that's who we're speaking to today.
Yeah, I mean, it's potentially a rival, but it's a targeted rival because P&G's market cap is something like 337 billion and Unilever's is like 140 billion. So this acquisition is going to have to go a ways before it becomes a true competitor. But I think there's a lot of interesting things that are going to happen because of this acquisition. I'm super happy to be introducing Amy Trejo and Jose Carlos Garcia of P&G. I've known both of them for many years. Amy and I actually did our first panel together at SymBioBeta probably in 2017 or 2018. And both of them work in the research division at P&G in Cincinnati. Amy has a very interesting career in that she's worked across a variety of categories. She's going to talk about them. I think she worked at Connect and Develop, which is like their open innovation arm. She has focused life sciences in health and beauty, and she will talk about that. I think now she's really focused on Olay, Head and Shoulders, Pantene, and Align, those kinds of consumer brands. And then JC, Dr. Jose Carlos Garcia is a senior director and research fellow at P&G. And he has a PhD in biomedical sciences. And he has a really interesting background that he's also going to talk about, works on P&G's corporate biotechnology program, which he helped launch in 2010. And he's super passionate about applied research. You'll hear that come out in the podcast. And he's very interested in how we use biotechnology to enhance consumer health and wellness. So with that, I think let's let JC and Amy take it away. Amy Trejo and Jose Carlos Garcia of Procter Gamble, we are so thrilled to get you on the Grow Everything podcast.
Thank you for having us, Karl and Erum.
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
Yeah. So, and we're happy to have you. We've known each other for a while. We've known each other through SymBioBeta. We've done a little bit of work together. I'd love for you both to please give our audience an introduction in terms of like, what do you do? What's your role at P&G? And then we have a lot of questions that we want to ask and questions that we know our audience is going to want to know. Amy, why don't you please introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Amy Trejo, and I work at the Procter Gamble company, have done for nearly 30 years now. I have worked across a variety of different categories and functions during that time, primarily focusing on health and beauty. So I started in skincare, working on brands like Olay, and I then moved into the healthcare organization and worked with our probiotic product, Lichen. And then I moved back into beauty care, working in hair care for my first time. And then I worked in corporate R&D for a period of time. And that's when I met JC. And we started working together very closely in the life sciences space. Did a lot of work with startups at that time and started our journey with biotech and synthetic biology more intentionally than I think P&G had done previously. And then I moved back into beauty care business, hair care, which is where I'm finishing now. And so I've been in hair care again for maybe the past 5 years, focusing a lot on our sustainability work in the hair care organization.
And I'm JC. I've been with P&G for 15 years, and I had the privilege of leading the corporate biotechnology organization, where we partner with all of our go-to-market organizations, all of our business units, to bring biotech innovation to life with their innovation pipeline. And we couldn't be more thrilled to be here today, having this conversation and bringing some visibility to what P&G is doing in the space, innovating, and all of the exciting partnerships that we have and are looking for.
Amazing. I'm very excited to have you on. We've worked together on some projects. Throughout the time of me knowing you, I've learned a lot about P&G and all the innovation that has transpired over centuries. It's so amazing. But for our audience, can you walk us through what biotech innovations have had the biggest impact, whether at P&G or CPG in general, and share one from a long time ago and one within the past 30 years and one recent one? So 3, if you can give us 3.
Yeah, a couple of loaded words there. Biotech and CPG, very broad words. So let me use the Procter Gamble company as a proxy for CPG. And then I use a very broad and loose definition. So going back nearly 2 centuries ago, 189 years, the Procter Gamble company was founded. We gone through a lot of changes, both as a company, but we've also survived a lot of external changes. You can imagine in the nearly 2 centuries of existence, we not only survived, but embraced the Industrial Revolution, the tech revolution, AI revolution, and now we're embracing the biotech revolution. We've seen the world go from 1 billion consumers to 8+ billion consumers. We've survived world wars. A lot has changed. A lot has changed at the Procter Gamble company too, but a few things have not changed. First and foremost, obviously, our purpose, values, and principles have not changed. We're still in the business of bringing superior quality and value products to our consumers to improve their lives now and for generations to come. And that's critical because that makes what we're about a sustainable, not only from a business standpoint, but also from an environmental standpoint. It hasn't changed our external focus. That's one of our core values. And that obviously has implications from a consumer centricity and interest in partnering with retailers and all of the go-to-market infrastructure. But it's also on the innovation front. That's very true. We're always seeking innovation, whatever it is. We're always seeking to partner with the best and to bring the best talent into P&G. And the third thing that hasn't changed is the foundational story and origin of the Procter Gamble company. We are fundamentally a biomaterials company, even though some people may think of P&G as a chemistry and marketing company. We have origin stories based on the valorization of bio-waste. If we go back nearly 2 centuries ago, we and Procter and James Gamble were in Cincinnati, the pork capital of the world. Obviously, there was a lot more value in pork meat than other bio-waste derived from pork, like fats. And they saw that as an opportunity to upcycle that bio-waste and add value. And they were making soap and candles independently. And they came together. Again, partnership and collaboration is part of the company's DNA from its inception. And they founded the Procter Gamble company that were a bio-waste upcycling and valorization has always been a part of who we are and what we do. In more recent times, we have used a lot of fermentation technologies, enzyme technologies. We invented and defined a category with laundry enzymes in the 1960s that are a disruptional technology that served as the basis for the Ariel and Tide brands. Launched in 1968. Those were the first laundry detergent that used enzymes at the time, like bases, proteases, and cellulases, natural enzymes at the time. Obviously, subsequent generations of products have incorporated improved recombinant enzymes in more recent decades, and we continue to innovate in that space. For the longest time, optimal temperature, warm water was needed for those enzymes to work and deliver on the consumer promise. We have now cold water enzymes that they work equally well, if not better, in cold water, even in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's a continued innovation in that space. I'm super excited with what's been going on in the beauty industry in more recent times. The last decades have seen a lot of innovation and biotech-enabled anti-aging bioactives and peptides, a lot of novel, very exciting biosurfactants and biopolymers are coming to life. It has allowed us also to get away from animal testing. You see all of the different animal-free technologies that we've been able to bring to life. And other too, there's a lot of animal-free squalene and collagen and great bioactive ceramides in the market. So a lot of exciting innovation across all of the sectors that we play in. And we couldn't be more excited about the promise of biotech in improving our consumers' lives.
When you think about those examples, GC and Amy, what patterns do you see across them? What made them stick when maybe other innovations did not?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think there's one thing that really defines what makes something stick. And it's pretty basic. It's about performance, right? And so in order for a consumer to use and to love your product over time, it has to perform for her, right? So if we think back to the laundry enzyme example, the options that people had to do their laundry were not particularly efficacious. And it was step changing to have these enzymes that were specifically designed to clean better be a part of this. And it was tremendously exciting. And it got people to want to use this product and only this product, right? And so it was performance driven. And I think that that's the real advantage that we have with biotech technologies going forward, and where we will see things that do better in the marketplace and are successful will be driven by the performance that it provides to the consumer. At the end of the day, the consumers don't care how you make the material that you provide to them in the product that you deliver, right? They care primarily about, does this work? Does this help me get the job done that I need to get done today, right now? And if you can deliver on that, then they're going to become loyal to you and to your products, right? But it has to deliver. And so when you think about things that have come and gone in this space, it is largely based on the success is largely based on those that have delivered against the promise that they set out to deliver. And I think that biotechnology can be a really huge enabler of that going forward, because there is a lot of potential there to provide performance that exceeds the incumbent materials that we have today and provide better delight and improved product performance than where some of the materials today have been.
Thanks for saying that about performance, because I think more recently in biotech, and a lot of biotech companies look to the benefit of sustainability when it comes to what they're doing, when performance always wins out. And I will just use examples from my personal life because I try to be sustainable. I would buy laundry detergent that checks off some of those sustainability boxes, but they wouldn't clean as well. So what do I fall back on? I fall back on Tide, not to toot P&G's horn because we're talking to you, but it just works. It just works. I just need it to work, right? I have a 4-year-old who's messy. And so I have to fall back on that. And even when it comes to hair care, I try all sorts of different hair care products. And I will say the thing that I use the most to clean my hair and my scalp is Head and Shoulders, because it works. It has to, right? And the fact that it's not super expensive, it's also very valuable, no pun intended, but it helps. But, we have a lot of biotech innovators that listen to the podcast, and they would love to be able to work with P&G in some way. And when we spoke with you, we know that you're very active in the industry. You guys show up at conferences, you have conversations with a lot of innovators. But from your vantage point, what do you think is the biggest misunderstanding startups have about how large consumer companies actually engage with biotech innovation?
Thank you, Erum, for saying that. What's interesting is that in spite of our efforts to get out there, there's still that misconception that P&G is more of a industry company. There's so much bio-inspired, bio-based, bio-enabled innovation going on at P&G and behind our products. It's one of the magic of our products. So we keep trying really hard to increase awareness about P&G's innovation in the biotech space, about P&G's openness to partner with the top innovators, wherever they are around the world. We're open for business. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. The other one, and I think it's fair to acknowledge this, there's always a little bit of mistrust with big companies, and they think we're in the business of screwing partners over, where in reality, we want to create win-wins with our partners. Again, partnership and collaboration is in the DNA of our company, and we know how to do it well, and do it well enough that it can survive for centuries, not for years. That's how we measure success. So we always seek to understand what that's valuable to you. What are you seeking? How can we help? There's also the misconception. This may be more of a miscalibration when it comes to the perception of technical readiness and what it takes to bring the technology to market. And often there's a little bit of tension. There's also the not great awareness about what truly is P&G scale. There's scale and big company scale. And we're talking in some cases hundreds of thousands of metric tons of a single ingredient, in some cases close to 1 million metric tons of a single ingredient. So there's a lot that has to be done to enable that kind of scale. And obviously not many people are aware of that, of what it takes. The other misconception or misunderstanding is that we are only interested in products. We are interested in a lot more than just products. A lot of technical enablers, a lot of early stage. Obviously, we have across the whole value chain big needs, and we don't aspire to solve all of those needs internally. We were seeking partners to help us get there faster, and again, creating those win-wins and fostering a healthy innovation ecosystem that is sustainable for years to come.
Yeah. Before I ask the next question, JC or Amy, do you know what percentage of the products have innovations that come internally or externally? I'm not sure I can ask that question if you guys want to answer that.
I don't know if we can say a percentage, but on a portfolio basis, we shoot for about 50% internal, 50% external. We are extremely active. Our open innovation framework, it's called Connect Plus Develop. And we have not an army of people, but a definitely critical mass, a very, very robust and capable team of folks with technical background, finance, different kinds of background, just out there seeking partners. And a lot of people like me and Amy on the technical front that are constantly getting out there, meeting the innovation, whatever it is. We shoot for about 50%, but don't take that number to the bank. It's just an estimate.
So when a founder first approaches P&G, or someone is going to propose an idea or creating an ecosystem with you, what's the single most helpful way they can frame their work for a company that is at your scale, at that P&G scale?
I think it's really helpful if they understand what kind of products that P&G has and is developing, and can frame what is the value proposition that they see for P&G from their technology or their product. What is the uniqueness that it can provide versus maybe what they understand we have today, or other similar technologies that exist out in the market? And what does it really enable for us that is unique because of that particular technology? One of the things that we're starting to see is startups are not only coming to us with their technologies, but coming to us with product prototypes, which I absolutely love, because it shows that they understand the industries that we're in, and that we need to understand how this technology works in a product and what it can offer through the product to the consumers. So those are the kinds of things that really get our attention, and take that one step further and generate data that shows how it performs. So because I'm in hair care, right, I think about the hair care business. If you show me this technology product, it has good aesthetics, so I know that it doesn't make it really sticky or whatever, that's great. And then if you can show me how it performs for the consumer, that's even better. The other thing that is nice about that is we understand they have enough scale to make even some prototype products, because that's what's really important for us, is to be able to take their technology and test it in our own products, right? And so if they have enough at least to make their own prototypes, then we know that we can play with it in our products and learn a little bit more, together with consumers or in some of our other evaluative techniques. And so those are the kinds of things that I think are really helpful for founders to know. They're the kinds of things that speed our interest and help us to get our management also supportive of moving forward, right? Because we always align these things, and it's great when you have a show and tell. It really helps to bring the story to life of how this technology can provide something unique that performs well in our products and for our consumers.
Yeah, very helpful to all those innovators out there to show and tell. And when you have that conversation and you have the product to play with, the innovation in your hands, tell us a little bit more about that next step, right? You played with it, it looks good, but what does it take to have that longer term ecosystem partnership with P&G or a large company?
We start with, what we believe that it can do. And frankly, sometimes where people think it works is not the only place or the key place that we might start to focus on, right? So we have a huge network internally, and JC and I are both really well connected across all of our business units. And we might see opportunity for that in a different area or in multiple areas. And so I think what we would then do, what we often do as a next step, is reach out to our colleagues internally, talk to them about what we understand. And that's where the value of a prototype really comes in. Any data that is available from the startup, we share that internally to get the experts in a particular space aware of, what at least data exists today. And then they may prototype and play with it. Often we'll ask for a sample to enable us to put it into one of our products and see. And then, like I said, we have a lot of different methodologies and ways to test and evaluate that technology. And if it performs well in some of those, it will lead us to a next level conversation. And that next level conversation or next step can take a variety of different forms. It's very different based on what the opportunity is, but we don't have any one specific or prescriptive way to work. We do what works best. And building on what JC said, It's really about a win-win, right? What is the company also seeking? What does a win look like for them? And how can we match that? And how can we tailor the development part of the connected development to what works for both of us?
Yeah. So I just want to make a comment really quick because you mentioned if someone approaches you with a product or an ingredient, they might think it's going to be used for a certain product line, but it could be used for something else. And I recall when we visited P&G in the archive that there's like the enzyme that powers Tide powers so many different products. And it's interesting because you could take one innovation and put it into different products because it has different use cases, which I think is very important to think about and aligns with a lot of things that you guys are seeing. We're seeing when people have something so fundamental and they're like, oh, it could be used in hair care, it could be used in food, it could be used in all these different things. And, it's I think a challenge for this industry because where do they start? And you just never know, right? You just have to start these conversations. So I just wanted to point that out because you could have something and you think it's going to be used for food, but then all of a sudden it's like the next best thing in hair care.
Exactly. Yeah. And founders shouldn't be afraid to make a suggestion of how they think it could be useful because we can then say, okay, yeah, I understand. And we see, this potential too. So don't be afraid to just put something out there. We can react to that and build on it and do that together.
Yeah, that's why everyone needs to take improv classes. So yes, and yes,
Yeah.
and
So we're seeing a lot of innovation with biotech across all sectors, across biology, materials, biomanufacturing. But where are you seeing the most compelling convergence right now?
The most compelling convergence, that's such a good question. And I want to build first on the point that Amy was making, and it's related to a question you just asked, Carl. We believe so much in the power of reapplication that we have corporate teams like mine, that their main job is to create technology platforms that travel across the different business sectors and categories. And if we do it well, we maximize value extracted, the economy of scale, and the infrastructure that we had to create over the years to bring that innovation to life. It's not something that just happened. It's something that we are very intentional about exploring and making happen. On the convergence, what I'm really excited is about the convergence of biology and chemistry, where we can leverage all of the chemistry infrastructure and knowledge and optimization to the nth degree of those chemical processes and enable some of that with the new and emerging biotech approaches. And I think that's a winning formula. It also de-risks the exploration for companies like P&G that may have more developed infrastructure on the chemistry front. Biocatalysis, the closest thing to plug and play in that infrastructure. And we're super excited about the prospect of biocatalysis. And biomaterials, obviously, is a big one, but I'll let Amy build on that.
Yeah, I am super excited about the convergence of biotech with sustainability. And that's probably not a surprise given my role working in the hair care sustainability team. But I really do think that biotechnology is an enabler of sustainability for us. And so when we strive to become more sustainable with our products, so JC already mentioned the cold water enabling enzyme technologies, and we look for other examples like that, the old toolbox may not have enabled us to be as successful as some of the newer tools coming on biotech will enable us to be. And so then I think we can have that perfect marriage of the performance with sustainability. And that just opens up a lot of possibilities for us in the CPG space. And so I'm super excited about that convergence because we strive more and more for sustainable products to help improve the lives of the world's consumers and the planet. And we even have stated goals for things that we are going to do in that space. And so when we look for the ways and hows to get to where we want to be, I think biotech is just a huge enabler. And that's opened up a lot for us internally and externally, right? We've gotten a lot of traction internally with our leadership as we talk about biotech as an enabler of sustainability. And so I'm super excited about that because frankly, it makes my job easier.
Yes. Sustainability is key. And we always say sustainability in biotech is table stakes. It's really an enabler of that. And thank you so much for highlighting that. So you mentioned that the partnerships are core to P&G. It's part of its DNA. JC, remember when we were speaking on the panel at BioBeta, you were saying, Procter Gamble, there are partners. And so it started as a partnership. So of course there's partners. Can you talk about some successful biotech partnerships that have happened throughout the years or even recently?
Some of the initial partnerships are now part of the Procter Gamble company. We have the fermentation-based technologies that started up as partnerships, and then they are now part of our brand portfolio. I mentioned a few. New Chapter, a lineup of often fermented dietary supplements, is now part of the P&G company. The whole Lichen brand started as a partnership with a couple of great players in the Irish ecosystem, and that was spun out, and that's part of our brand portfolio. SK2 out of Japan started as a partnership and has become a multi-billion-dollar brand. So there's a large number of biotech-enabled innovation that has come to life. In the non-merger and acquisition front, obviously we have a number of strategic partnerships with different academic institutions and startups and even big companies across the spectrum. The partnership with Basecamp, for example, is allowing us to expand what's possible with enzymes, not just in the laundry space, but beyond. The partnership with all the big companies that have been announced in the probiotic and microbial engineering front, very exciting, with different academics all over the world. In the US, a number of them, and not just big ecosystems like Boston and the Bay Area. We've gone to the Innovators, whatever they are, a number of important partnerships in the Midwest with Northwestern University, Wisconsin-Madison, Ohio State, locally with Cincinnati. A lot of the European ecosystem is thriving. In the UK, we are all over the place with Newcastle, Northumbria, Durham, and many more. Obviously, we have a presence in Brussels, Ghent University, where we do a lot with them. In Asia as well, the Chinese ecosystem, a lot of exciting innovation coming out of China, a lot of enablement that we're excited with. And we have a technical presence in Singapore as well. So the ecosystem in Asia is probably leveraged by P&G, and we couldn't be more excited. Anything you want to add in?
No, I think you covered the globe pretty well, JC, but we have a lot of partnerships across both academics and industry and other companies, as JC said. We like to say that we're agnostic to where a technology comes from. We're willing to partner in any way with any kind of institution to help deliver the best products we can to the consumer. So no matter where you come from or where you sit out there in the ecosystem, don't ever hesitate to approach us, because we are very open to ideas, good ideas that come from anywhere.
Yeah, and Amy and JC, we all know each other from BioBeta. I think Amy and you and I met each other first. But let's use that as an example of a conference that you attend. When you walk the floor at a conference like BioBeta, what signals tell you that a biotech company is ready to move from interesting science to potential real commercial partner?
I think it goes back to what I was saying before when I was talking about what's helpful for a startup to approach us. It's the ones that have some interesting product that resonates with the space in which we're looking to innovate. And they're able to show us how their technology works. And again, as I had said before, if they can make a product with it, then so can we. And then we can play and learn with that technology. So if we're walking the floor, those are the booths that are most interesting to us, is we can already see how it's coming to life. Not that we won't necessarily have other ideas, as I mentioned before, about how to take that technology further, but those are the ones that really catch our eyes, right? If we can see a vial of it on the table, I think that's always very exciting for us, because then that starts our minds churning about, oh, we could do this, we could do that. Right? So.
When we are delighting our consumers, we think about the different moments of truth. So the first moment of truth, obviously, when we are making the purchasing decision, we have to put a compelling value proposition and compelling message and product that they choose us over other products. When they use it, and that eventually they're going to have to make purchasing decisions. And those are further moments of truth. And it's really no different for the innovators in the space. They see us as their consumer, their prospective partner, and they have to win us over with something compelling. And sometimes it's like seconds or minutes is all they have, right? So they have that pitch ready. So you capture our attention and imagination in a short period of time. But then we want more than just that swag, right? So that's when elements like a strong IP position, the product differentiation, the value proposition come into play. If that's not there, if we go for a year, maybe not more than that. So to get to a more sustainable partnership and maybe even a strategic partnership, more than the first moment of truth is going to be needed. And that's when we get to those elements, and IP is still king in this world. So do what you can to establish a strong and robust IP position that we can defend together and reapply broadly.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So we talked a lot about innovation, technology, business, but let's talk a little bit more about the consumer experience and storytelling and marketing a bit. So what role does storytelling and messaging play in helping not only consumers, but internal teams and external innovators align around emerging biotech innovation? Can you share some insights there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I already alluded to some elements of storytelling. Our products are out there applying for different jobs in our consumers' homes, and they have many choices. So when we produce these job applicants, they have to, and they send in their application, they have to put together a very compelling case for them to be hired by our consumers. And that's all storytelling, from what we put on the label, what a copy says, both on TV, digital, and printed. Again, it has to be very effective because sometimes we have seconds or split seconds to get their attention. And one element that is often underestimated, I would say, is that we are not, for the most part, direct to consumer company, even though that's a growing business for us, obviously, with e-commerce. But we sell our products through retail that we call customers. In brick and mortar, unlike in the e-commerce platforms, there's limited real estate. And there's a lot of players competing for that real estate. And you have to make a very compelling case for why your innovation should be engaged and displayed over competing innovations. And everybody's trying, and we're trying really hard. So that's one of the superpowers of biotech that we think is going to come into play. In some markets, consumers are demanding biotech-enabled innovation front and center. So we hope that becomes a global trend and that more and more consumers expect that from us and others, and that we're going to be well positioned to win in that future scenario. The partnerships don't always come knocking at our door, so we have to get out there and communicate effectively that we're seeking partnerships, what kind of partnerships we're seeking, and we're very flexible, but we have priorities too. Going back to the misconception question or misunderstanding is that we have unlimited budget. We have a healthy R&D budget, but it's not unlimited. So we have many priorities, and maybe another misconception is that we're just writing checks. And we're not. We're very intentional, very focused. And even though that focus is very broad, we want to attract and retain top talent from around the world. So that's another element of storytelling. And then there's a whole layer to that, which is internal communication. We have to, as a big company with 100,000 plus employees and a global footprint, how we communicate the potential of biotech and bring awareness to it across the company, across all of the 5 different sectors that we play in, multiple brands, and it takes a lot of storytelling. So it's a key element of our innovation strategy, communication and storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to say, I mean, the $1 billion question here is you mentioned that consumers are demanding biotech products. What type of demand are you seeing? What space, at least, maybe not a specific product, but what demand or sentiment are you seeing that people are like, oh, this is the type of biotech innovation that we want?
Or what market?
Yeah, where it's the most apparent is the beauty consumer in Asia is expecting that more and more. It's I don't know if you had the opportunity to see a copy from the Asian market, but some of it looks really like scientific posters. And you see bar charts and a very close to primary data of that copy. It's truly remarkable how different it can be from region to region. But it's exciting too. And K-pop took on, maybe K-Biotech and take some and will spread all over the world. And again, our job is to prepare P&G to be well positioned to play in that region.
Yeah, we've been looking for a K biotech person to come on because we understand that is a very dynamic market, especially on the personal care and beauty side. But thinking ahead 5 years, how do you expect the relationship between consumer brands and biotech startups will fundamentally change? You just gave this example on the consumer, on the beauty side in Asia, but fundamentally, how do you think it's going to change?
I think the thing that I would love to see is that startups view larger companies as true partners and recognize, a little bit building on what JC said, that we have more to offer than just offer, right? We are a large company. We have a lot of resources. We can truly work together as development partners to develop their technologies into products, provide resources to help learn with consumers about what the range of benefits of a given technology could be, bring those to life across more than maybe just the one product type that they were thinking about, right? We have the access to our full product portfolio and really truly co-develop these things. My greatest wish for would be that startups would not be afraid to view us as those true partners in co-development, because we truly do look for the win-win situation for everyone that we work with. And then I think a little bit more broadly, just about the technologies themselves, my wish for in the next 5-10 years is that there are just so many technology options available that we have a hard time exploring all of them because there's just so many. And they're enabling the types of tricky jobs to be done that we have for our consumers. You know, they're enabling breakthroughs in those spaces because they uniquely can offer what can we bring to life through biotech. So I think the potential is all there. And I really look forward to the coming years to see all of that come to life going forward.
Yes, yes. And the last question I think you answered, but there are many answers to this question. But we want you to give us one piece of advice to biotech innovators hoping to work with P&G. What would you want them to understand? The one thing you want them to understand, the one piece of advice.
The one piece of advice that I will give him, and I'm repeating myself here, but it's like, use your idea to practice. Don't come to us with just ideas, but with a robust proposition. Whatever product is, you get to define what product it means. It may not be what we call a product, but it is your product, and it has an intrinsic value to it. So protect it, reduce it to practice, maybe not in that order, but establish as broad of a moat around your IP position as possible. Think reapplication. We will definitely think reapplication when we partner with you. And that's one of the beauties of partnering with a company like P&G. We can reapply your technology, ingredient, product across many different business categories and sectors and maximize the value extracted from the proposition. And trust that we want to create those win-wins. Don't be so guarded up that you don't make partnering possible. Have some trust in the process. We all try to do the right thing, do what's right, and we do right by P&G and our partners. So together we can do a lot more than either one of us.
I don't know, Amy, if you wanted to add anything to that, any advice for biotech founders?
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to approach us. If it's not going to work, we will tell you. So there's no harm in coming and asking, right? If you never ask us, then we will never know. And so we'd rather have those conversations even early, because what we can do then is help guide you and say, hey, this is interesting. I don't know that there's enough here right now for us to do anything, but maybe if you came back to us next year with this, that, or the other thing, then we can have some further conversation. And that gives them some guidance about what they can go off and do. And frankly, we've had some companies do that. They come back to us a year or two later and they say, hey, we met you and we shared this and now we have this. And we're like, oh, wow, that's super impressive. So, don't be afraid at any stage, because if it's not right, we'll tell you and we'll help guide you in what could be helpful going forward.
I think that's super useful. So we're going to move to the quickfire question part of this interview. Erum and I will alternate asking you questions. We'd love to get answers from both of you. You can keep your answer as long or as short as you want. I'll ask the first question. It's early morning at a conference. What's your choice? Coffee, matcha, or pure adrenaline?
Early morning and early afternoon coffee.
Coffee.
Double.
We can always find JC and I by the coffee stand.
Same here.
Matcha for me. Okay. Even though the question was not for me. Okay. So if you had to choose one, Head and Shoulders or Pantene, no explaining allowed.
Head and Shoulders.
Canteen.
Okay. Lab tour or factory floor, where do you linger the longest?
I'll take that one first.
Lab tour.
I think the factory. I learn a lot when I'm at the factory.
I miss the lab, and so I would take any chance I can to be in the lab.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay. Conference swag you secretly love or immediately toss.
Oh, llamas.
Did you say
JC and I
llamas?
Yeah, we were recently at a conference together in Japan, and they had stuffed llamas everywhere. So,
Yeah.
All right. This last one, Pepsi or Coke.
Water or coffee?
Yes. Keep it diplomatic.
Coffee always.
Was there any other questions that you wanted us to ask before we wrap this up?
Maybe just the recognition that P&G is not for everybody. If you want to impact 100 lives and you're happy with that, we're definitely not the right partner. If you are looking for a partner that can help you bring your innovation to life and touch the life of over half of the billions of consumers around the world, we'd be happy to partner with you. And that's our sweet spot.
Yeah, I just want to say in closing, besides thank you so much for taking the time. As we've gotten to know each other and have worked together and have collaborated, I mean, one of the things that really has stood out to me was that idea that you just expressed, JC, that like partnering with P&G gives a startup or a company the opportunity to impact more than half the world's population. You guys are everywhere. These are everyday products that people use all the time. And if biotech is going to have an impact on the world the way that we want it to, we really need to have companies like P&G putting it out there in the world, because people are using those products. And everything we talk about on this podcast is about how biotech makes the world better. So thank you so much for coming on and speaking to our audience. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you all for having us. It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure to partner with you and to have this conversation with you today.
absolutely.
Yay. Okay, awesome. That's a wrap. Hey, this episode is sponsored by Messaging Lab. At Messaging Lab, we translate complex science and economics into compelling business narratives. And we have done so for the most successful biotech-forward companies across pharma, agriculture, personal care and beauty, materials, and the list goes on. We're here to make sure your ideas not only get heard, but resonate with your audience. So if it's time to amplify your company's voice and elevate your business, visit us at messaginglab.com. Let's grow. So Karl, what'd you think of that episode?
Amy and JC were such a pleasure to have on Grow Everything. I think our listeners are really going to enjoy listening to this episode. And I think it's worth saying that P&G, most people think of as a chemistry company, but it's really a biology company. And when you look at its heritage, it's really interesting. It was a waste to value, biological waste to value company. Start off with one guy making candles and another guy making soap. And these two guys came together. And as JC said, collaboration is in the name, Procter and Gamble. And their mission is to touch and improve lives now and for generations to come. And one of the things that I've always taken away from speaking with them is this idea of superior products that touch people's lives every day. What did you think, Erum?
Yeah. Yes. Superior products that touch people's lives every day. So when they started in 1837, William Procter was an English candle maker, and James Gamble was an Irish soap maker. And funny story is that they actually got together because they were interested in women that were sisters. And the father of those sisters were like, you guys should do a partnership and work together. And that's kind of how it started, this partnership. And, we had the privilege of going to the P&G archives in Cincinnati, Ohio. And wow, I mean, definitely museum quality. They do such a good job of keeping all of their history, and to be able to, first of all, see the soaps and candles that were there in the early 1800s, and to see how they first looked at innovation and this waste to value, taking waste products from the pork industry and creating soaps and candles, and then to be able to not only look at innovation from a product standpoint, but also from a branding and marketing standpoint, which we didn't talk a lot about in this episode, but they are the kind of the first companies to look at like, what's a logo look like? And it was out of necessity to be able to differentiate different crates that were going on ships. And they created, I think it was like an X with a circle on it. And like this X with a circle was like a P&G product. And then they had the evolution of their logo across the centuries. And wow, I mean, it was such an amazing thing to see how innovation and business grew through the lens of P&G's evolution. And I was just like floored about how they took one innovation and were able to make several products out of that. And, we saw that firsthand when we were at the archive. It's incredible. And I think one of the things when we were working with P&G was to really unravel or unlock all of those stories from the past and look at them from a biotech lens or a biological innovation lens. And we're able to draw some of those stories out, which was a great exercise to do with them.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the marketing side of it, because P&G has always been a force when it comes to storytelling, understanding consumer preferences. Even soap operas are named soap operas because P&G was a big sponsor of soap operas. And I'm a huge fan of the advertiser David Ogilvy. David Ogilvy has a book called On Advertising, and there's even a whole chapter dedicated to going up against P&G if you're marketing. That part of the book is a little dated, but that's how important P&G has been, as an American institution. So, we talk a lot about like the innovation and biotech side, but the marketing side and the innovation on the marketing side is just as significant. One of the innovations that I was really super excited to learn about was this idea of enzymes in laundry detergents. And we'll put a link in the show notes to the first Ariel commercial, which is from the early 1960s. And Ariel was the first brand to use enzymes. And then as that evolved over time, P&G introduced cold water enzymes. And what that has done is save probably billions of dollars in terms of energy costs, because 90% of energy costs associated with laundry is heating the water. So if you can move to cold water without having to heat the water, and you're able to use enzymes, you're going to save a lot of money. And that's great for the environment.
Yes, yes. And those enzymes initially powered laundry detergent, but then again fueled all these different products. So if you have the chance to go to the P&G archive, I believe you need someone from P&G to get you in. But they have this like a web, a matrix where, has like the Tide enzyme, but then all the other products that leverage this enzyme or some type of derivative of that enzyme for other types of cleaning, whether it's surface cleaning of your home or even cleaning your skin or your hair. It's amazing to see how they take innovation and then are able to fuel the products that we use every day. So that was great. And then, of course, the partnerships conversation. This was really the core of what we talked about, because we know that there are a lot of innovators out there that we meet that would love to work with a company like P&G. And we really wanted to take the veil off of how do you actually partner with a giant like P&G, and a lot of great tips on how to get started. One of those things is the Connect and Develop platform or the portal. And so we'll have a link to that in the show notes for you guys to check out. But really taking the time to understand how P&G works. I mean, they have a corporate arm, which is P&G, but then they have all their brands. and even their brands are segmented into different divisions. They have it all laid out for you. Just need to be able to think strategically and come up with a solid plan so you don't leave big companies like P&G or others guessing on how they can work with you, that there is a pathway that they can then noodle on with you. And I think that's a very powerful takeaway from not only this conversation with P&G, but also our previous episode with Aaron Marasco of Cargill, also iterating, really come up with a solid plan and take into consideration how your innovation, your company can drive value for the larger company, and coming up even from an economic standpoint, do the math, figure it out, have a framework in which you can talk about true partnership.
Amy mentioned that several of the brands that are now P&G brands started out as partnerships. New Chapter, Align, SK2 were among those that she mentioned. And then a partnership that they have, whether that becomes an acquisition or something, we'll have to see how things work out in the future, is with Basecamp Research, who they've partnered with to explore enzymes and how to find new enzymes.
There was a lot of great stories about P&G. There were a lot of great advice being given to people that do want to partner with P&G. And this is episode 2 of our CPG series. We've heard from some large companies. Now we're going to hear from some innovators that are creating products that are consumer packaged goods, or that fuel those products that are being rewritten at a molecular level, that they're creating things for all sorts of applications in different ways. So please stay tuned for that. And I think that's the pod. Karl, do you want to read us out? That's what...
I'll just say thanks for listening. Follow us on YouTube, subscribe and like. We've got a good number of people who are subscribing and liking us and leaving comments on YouTube. You can also watch the podcast on Spotify. Now that we're releasing video, you can see us in all our glory on every episode. So thank you for listening to the Grow Everything podcast.
All right, that's the pod.